Why is butter the only food in America legally exempt from declaring its colorants on the label? Every packaged food sold in the United States must list its color additives in the ingredient statement. Every food except three: butter, cheese, and ice cream. Under Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 101.22, subsection K, paragraph 3, when a coloring has been added to butter, cheese, or ice cream, it need not be declared in the ingredient list. This exemption did not happen by accident. The dairy industry successfully lobbied Congress to exclude butter from the same disclosure requirements that apply to every other food on the grocery shelf. That means the deep golden yellow color of the conventional butter stick in your refrigerator may not come from grass-fed cows or beta-carotene-rich cream. It may come from annatto, a plant-derived dye added to compensate for the pale, almost white color of butter produced from grain-fed cows confined to feedlots. And you will never know it from reading the label because the law says they do not have to tell you. But the hidden colorants are only the beginning. Recent testing found PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, known as forever chemicals, in butter wrappers at alarming levels. Kerrygold, one of the most popular premium butter brands in America, tested at 61 to 122 parts per million of organic fluorine in its foil wrappers. The company faced a class action lawsuit alleging its pure Irish butter label was misleading given the presence of these toxic chemicals. Kerrygold was pulled from store shelves in New York and California after both states passed laws banning PFAS in food packaging. Butter's high fat content makes it particularly effective at absorbing PFAS from packaging. You are not just eating butter, you are eating whatever migrated from the wrapper into the fat. And until February 2024, when the FDA announced that PFAS grease-proofing agents would no longer be sold for food contact use, the industry had been wrapping butter in forever chemicals for decades without disclosure, without testing, and without consequence. The dairy industry spent nearly $8 million lobbying the federal government in 2025. The broader food and beverage sector spent over $23 million. American butter must contain a minimum of 80% butterfat by USDA regulation. European butter must contain a minimum of 82%. That 2% difference means more water and less flavor in American butter. European butter is often made from the milk of grass-fed cows, giving it a natural golden color from beta-carotene without artificial colorants. American conventional butter is typically made from the milk of grain-fed cows treated with recombinant bovine somatotropin, a synthetic growth hormone banned in the European Union, Canada, Japan, and Australia, but still legal in the United States. The pale butter is then dyed yellow and flavored with diacetyl, a compound listed simply as natural flavors on the ingredient label because the regulatory system allows it. Today, we are examining 16 butter brands and the regulatory system that allows a product to be artificially colored without disclosure, wrapped in forever chemicals without warning, made from hormone-treated milk without restriction, and sold at a lower butterfat standard than every other major dairy-producing region in the world. This is not about whether butter is healthy. This is about the gap between what the label says and what the product contains, and the lobbying dollars that maintain that gap. Let us follow the money, brand by brand, loophole by loophole. Number 16. Great Value Butter is Walmart's store brand, and this is about the commodity milk sourcing loophole. Great Value is one of the most widely purchased butter brands in America. Walmart does not produce butter. It contracts manufacturing to third-party processors who source cream from the commodity dairy market at the lowest available price. That cream may come from cows treated with rBST, a synthetic growth hormone. It may contain somatic cell counts approaching the American legal maximum of 750,000 cells per milliliter, nearly double the 400,000 limit enforced in the European Union. The antibiotic residues in that milk may or may not have been adequately tested, given that FDA enforcement relies heavily on self-reporting. An Emory University study found antibiotic residues in 60% of conventional milk samples. That milk becomes the cream that becomes the butter in the foil wrapper. And the label tells you none of it. The consumer sees butter. The label lists pasteurized cream and salt. What the label does not list is the color additive that the law exempts manufacturers from declaring, the growth hormones in the milk that producers are not required to disclose, or the quality of the cream that is not required to be specified. Number 15. Land O'Lakes butter is owned by the Land O'Lakes Cooperative, one of the largest dairy companies in the United States. It also benefits from a cooperative marketing loophole. Land O'Lakes reported over $5 billion in dairy revenues. Its marketing evokes images of pastoral farm life. Its butter is produced from commodity dairy cream sourced from its member farms across the country. Land O'Lakes butter contains pasteurized cream, salt, and on some products, natural flavor. That natural flavor is typically diacetyl, a compound that provides the rich buttery taste associated with cultured butter without the expense and time of actually culturing the cream. Diacetyl is classified as generally recognized as safe by the Food and Drug Administration under the GRAS framework. In occupational settings, inhaled diacetyl has been linked to bronchiolitis obliterans, a severe and irreversible lung disease known as popcorn lung. The Food and Drug Administration maintains that ingested diacetyl in food is safe at approved levels. The consumer reading natural flavor on a butter label has no way of knowing that the flavor in question is a compound with documented occupational health risks. The GRAS system allows the industry to self-determine that an additive is safe without requiring Food and Drug Administration pre-market review. The consumer trusts the label. The label says natural flavor. The regulatory system says that is sufficient disclosure for a compound the label does not name. Number 14. Challenge Butter, owned by Dairy Farmers of America, highlights a consolidation transparency issue. Challenge is a well-known butter brand on the west coast of the United States. Dairy Farmers of America is the largest dairy cooperative in the country, with a $23 billion portfolio. DFA's consolidation of the American dairy market following Dean Foods' bankruptcy in 2019 raised antitrust concerns documented by the Department of Justice. When one cooperative controls a dominant share of the national milk supply, the pricing, sourcing, and quality decisions for dozens of brands flow from a single corporate entity. The consumer sees different brands on the shelf and perceives competition. The reality is consolidation. Challenge Butter, Dairy Pure Milk, Borden Products, and numerous store brands may all trace their cream supply back to DFA's network. The label does not disclose this, and the regulatory system does not require it. Number 13. Store brand butter from Kroger, Aldi, Costco, and Target. The private label race to the bottom. America's largest retailers all sell store brand butter at price points that undercut national brands. Kroger's Simple Truth, Aldi's Countryside Creamery, Target's Good and Gather, and Costco's Kirkland Signature all source butter through contract manufacturers. The economics mirror every other category we have examined. When the retailer demands the lowest possible price, the manufacturer sources the cheapest available cream. The cheapest cream comes from the most industrialized operations, where cows are grain-fed, hormone-treated, and managed for maximum output rather than milk quality. The resulting butter meets the USDA minimum of 80% butterfat and contains whatever undisclosed colorants the manufacturer added to achieve an appealing golden appearance. The label says butter. The standard says 80%. The other 20% is water and milk solids. And no one is required to tell you whether the cream was organic, conventional, grass-fed, grain-fed, hormone-free, or anything else. Number 12. Breakstone's butter is marketed as a traditional American brand, but it is owned by Lactalis, headquartered in Laval, France. Lactalis is the largest dairy company in the world, with annual revenues exceeding $28 billion. This creates an American standards loophole related to foreign ownership. Lactalis produces butter in France under EU regulations that require 82% butterfat, prohibit rBST, enforce lower somatic cell count limits, and mandate allergen and additive labeling that exceeds American requirements. The same company produces Breakstone's butter for the American market under American regulations that require only 80% butterfat, permit rBST, allow higher somatic cell counts, and exempt butter from color additive disclosure. Same company, same expertise, different standards. The consumer buying Breakstones in an American grocery store receives less regulatory protection than a French consumer buying Lactalis butter in a French supermarket. The difference is not capability, it is what the law requires. Number 11. Country Crock plant butter and dairy blends. Country Crock, owned by Upfield, sells both plant-based spreads and dairy blends that are positioned alongside butter in the dairy case. The dairy blends contain a mixture of oils, cream, and other ingredients that do not meet the FDA definition of butter. They are butter-adjacent products that benefit from proximity to real butter on the shelf and in the consumer's mind. The FDA standard of identity for butter requires the product to contain at least 80% milk fat churned from cream. Products that do not meet this standard cannot be called butter, but they can be packaged in butter-shaped sticks, placed in the butter section, and named with words that evoke butter without using the word itself. A consumer navigating the dairy case at speed may not distinguish between butter and a butter-flavored spread. The packaging is designed to blur that line. The regulatory system permits this blur, as long as the technical labeling requirements are met somewhere on the package. Number 10. Plugrá European-style butter, manufactured in the United States, and the European-style marketing loophole. Plugrá markets itself as European-style butter with 82% butterfat, matching the European Union minimum standard. The product is manufactured in Pennsylvania, not in Europe. The term European-style has no legally enforceable federal definition. Any American manufacturer can label its butter European-style without meeting any specific European Union standard beyond choosing to use 82% butterfat. European butter production, particularly in France, involves strict regional certifications like AOC and AOP that govern everything from the breed of cow to the geographic origin of the milk to the method of churning. European style in the American market refers only to a higher butterfat percentage. It does not imply European sourcing, European animal welfare standards, European additive regulations, or European quality certifications. The consumer reads European style and infers European quality. The product delivers American cream at a higher fat content. These are not the same thing. The labeling system does not require the distinction to be made clear. Number 9. Kerrygold butter, owned by Ornua, an Irish dairy cooperative, and the PFAS forever chemical loophole. Kerrygold is one of the most popular premium butter brands in the United States, marketed as pure Irish butter from grass-fed cows. The butter itself is generally well regarded for quality, but testing found PFAS forever chemicals in Kerrygold's foil butter wrappers at levels of 61 to 122 parts per million of organic fluorine. A class action lawsuit was filed in the Eastern District of New York, alleging that the pure Irish butter label was misleading given the presence of PFAS. The lawsuit argued that diet is a major avenue for PFAS exposure, and that butter's high fat content makes it particularly effective at absorbing these chemicals from packaging. Kerrygold was pulled from store shelves in New York and California after both states enacted laws banning PFAS in food packaging. The lawsuit was dismissed in August 2024. Ornua stated it would ensure its packaging remained compliant with all relevant state legislation. The FDA announced in February 2024 that PFAS grease-proofing agents would no longer be sold for food contact use, with a phase-out by 2025. But the question remains, for the decades before that phase-out, how much PFAS migrated from butter wrappers into the butter consumed by millions of Americans? No one tested, no one tracked, and no one is responsible for the cumulative exposure. Number 8. HEB Organic butter. The Organic Packaging Contamination Paradox. HEB Organic butter tests demonstrated the paradox of organic certification and packaging contamination. The HEB Organic salted sweet cream butter wrappers tested at 16 to 18 parts per million of organic fluorine, indicating PFAS contamination in the packaging of an organic product. The consumer paying a premium for organic butter expects a cleaner product. The organic certification applies to the cream, not to the wrapper. The cow's feed may be free of synthetic pesticides. The butter may be free of rBST, but the packaging may contain forever chemicals that migrate into the product at the point of contact. The organic seal creates a halo effect that extends beyond what the certification guarantees. The consumer sees organic and infers pure. The wrapper tells a different story. The labeling system does not require disclosure of packaging contaminants. Number 7. Horizon Organic Butter, owned by Danone. The organic enforcement gap. Horizon Organic is the largest organic dairy brand in the United States. Danone North America posted revenues exceeding $7.7 billion. Horizon Organic Butter carries the USDA organic seal, which prohibits synthetic hormones, antibiotics, and most synthetic pesticides. But the USDA enforcement of organic dairy standards has been repeatedly questioned. Investigations have found that some large organic dairy operations may not meet the pasture access requirements that organic certification demands. The consumer trusts the organic seal. The seal's value depends on enforcement, and enforcement depends on the USDA inspection capacity, which is constrained by budget and political will. Danone spent $790,000 on federal lobbying in 2022. The organic butter may well be legitimately organic, but the system that verifies it is the same system that the industry lobbies to keep under-resourced. Number 6. Danish Creamery Butter, owned by California Dairies Incorporated, illustrates the regional brand consolidation loophole. Danish Creamery trades on Scandinavian heritage and imagery that evokes Danish pastoral dairy traditions. It is produced in California by California Dairies Incorporated, one of the largest dairy cooperatives on the West Coast. The product has no connection to Denmark. The label does not claim it does, but the brand name creates an association that the consumer may not consciously examine. In the European Union, geographic terms in food branding are subject to strict regulations that prevent misleading associations. In the United States, a butter brand can evoke any geography it chooses without regulatory consequence. The consumer's perception is shaped by the name. The name is shaped by marketing, and the marketing is unconstrained by the truth of origin. Number 5. Cabot Butter is owned by Cabot Creamery, a Vermont cooperative. The issue is the butterfat quality floor loophole. Cabot is a well-regarded, farmer-owned cooperative that has won international butter competitions. Their standard butter contains 80% butterfat, the USDA minimum. Their extra creamy line contains 83%. The regulatory issue is not with Cabot specifically, but with the American standard that allows 80% to be the norm. At 80% butterfat, American butter contains 20% water and milk solids. At 82%, European butter contains 18%. At 84%, premium European and Amish butters contain 16%. Consumers buying standard American butter are paying for a product that is 1/5 not butter. The USDA set 80% as the minimum, and the industry settled there because more water means more yield from less cream, which means more profit per pound. Cabot's extra creamy line proves that American producers can exceed the minimum. But the minimum is what most of the market delivers, because the minimum is what the regulation requires, and the minimum is what maximizes margin. Number 4. Organic Valley Butter, based in Lafarge, Wisconsin. Organic Valley is the largest farmer-owned organic cooperative in the United States, and their butter is widely considered among the cleanest conventional options available. Their cream comes from pasture-raised cows without synthetic hormones or antibiotics. However, Mamavation sent Organic Valley butter wrappers to an EPA-certified laboratory to test for PFAS. The results for packaging contamination highlight the systemic nature of the PFAS problem. Even producers with impeccable dairy practices cannot fully control what their packaging contributes to the product. The question is not whether Organic Valley makes good butter. They do. The question is whether the regulatory system that governs food packaging has kept pace with the science on PFAS migration into high-fat foods. It has not. Number 3. Smart Balance and other butter oil blends, and the ingredient complexity loophole. Smart Balance and similar products blend butter with vegetable oils such as canola, soybean, or olive oil to create spreadable products with modified fat profiles. These products occupy a regulatory gray zone between butter and margarine. They cannot be called butter, and they may not technically be margarine either. They are often labeled as buttery spreads or blends. The ingredient lists on these products can extend to 15 or 20 components, including emulsifiers, preservatives, natural flavors, vitamin A palmitate, and soy lecithin. A consumer who buys a buttery spread expecting a simpler, healthier alternative to butter may be purchasing a more complex industrial product. The marketing suggests simplicity, the ingredient list reveals manufacturing complexity, and the regulatory framework that allows a product with 20 ingredients to be positioned as a healthier alternative to a product with 2 ingredients does not require anyone to reconcile these contradictions for the consumer. Number 2. International delight. I can't believe it's not butter, and butter-flavored products. Many of these items use the word butter in their branding while containing no butter at all, or only a small amount alongside a complex mix of oils, emulsifiers, and flavorings. The primary flavoring agent in many of these products is diacetyl, the same compound that appears naturally in fermented dairy, and that is sometimes added to real butter, and listed simply as natural flavor. When diacetyl is produced synthetically or through bacterial fermentation and then added to food, it still qualifies as natural flavor under FDA regulations. The consumer reads natural flavor and assumes a benign, simple ingredient. The regulatory system permits that assumption without correction. The gap between what natural flavor means to the consumer and what it means to the regulatory system is the gap in which the entire flavored butter and butter substitute market operates. Number 1. The FDA Butter Standard of Identity and the Color Additive Exemption. The system was designed this way. The FDA defines butter as the food product usually known as butter, made exclusively from milk or cream, or both, with or without common salt, and with or without additional coloring matter. That last phrase, with or without additional coloring matter, combined with the explicit exemption from color additive disclosure in Section 101.22, means that butter is the only staple food in America where the manufacturer can add color and not tell the consumer. This exemption was not an oversight. It was lobbied for by the dairy industry decades ago when margarine manufacturers were required to sell their product uncolored to prevent it from being mistaken for butter. The dairy industry secured the right to color its own product while fighting to prevent competitors from doing the same. The exemption remained on the books long after the margarine wars ended. And today, it means that the consumer looking at a golden stick of conventional butter has no way of knowing whether that color came from grass-fed cream or from annatto dye added in the factory. The USDA sets butter's minimum butter fat at 80%. The EU sets it at 82%. The difference is not trivial. It means American consumers get more water per stick and less flavor per dollar. Recombinant bovine somatotropin remains legal in the United States, but is banned in the EU, Canada, Japan, and Australia. The dairy industry spent nearly $8 million lobbying in 2025. PFAS was found in butter wrappers at levels up to 122 parts per million. The FDA did not act on PFAS in food packaging until 2024, decades after the contamination began. The somatic cell count limit for American milk is 750,000 per milliliter, nearly double the EU standard of 400,000. The Emory University study found antibiotic residues in 60% of conventional milk samples. That milk becomes cream. That cream becomes butter. And none of these facts appear on the butter label because the regulatory system was designed to ensure they would not. What is the alternative when your government will not protect you? You protect yourself. Vital Farms butter, based in Austin, Texas, is made from the milk of pasture-raised cows on small family farms. Their butter uses 85% butterfat, exceeding both the American and European minimums, and their packaging has been tested with low PFAS indications. Minerva Dairy, based in Minerva, Ohio, has been producing butter since 1894. Their Amish-style butter contains 85% butterfat and is made from cream sourced from local farms using traditional slow-churning methods. Organic Valley Butter, despite the packaging concerns noted earlier, produces some of the cleanest dairy in the country from pasture-raised cows without synthetic hormones or antibiotics. Their cream quality exceeds what most conventional brands offer by a wide margin. Strauss Family Creamery, based in Petaluma, California, produces organic butter from their own certified organic dairy farm, the first west of the Mississippi. Their operation is solar-powered, and their butter reflects a commitment to transparency that the industry does not require. Anchor butter from New Zealand comes from a system where dairy regulations prohibit recombinant bovine somatotropin, enforce strict somatic cell count standards, and require pasture-based farming. New Zealand dairy standards are among the most protective in the world. For authentic French butter, look for AOC or AOP certification, which guarantees the butter was produced in a specific region of France under strict standards governing everything from cow breed to churning method. Beurre d'Isigny and Beurre de Charente-Poitou are two protected designations that represent the pinnacle of butter quality standards. These producers prove that making butter with higher butterfat, cleaner cream, transparent sourcing, and safer packaging is entirely achievable. The standard American butter market delivers 80% butterfat from commodity cream colored with undisclosed dyes, wrapped in packaging that until recently contained forever chemicals, made from milk that may contain synthetic hormones, elevated somatic cells, and antibiotic residues. The difference between these two realities is not technology or capability, it is regulation. And the regulation reflects the lobbying. When shopping for butter, follow these guidelines to protect yourself. Buy blocks from grass-fed or pasture-raised sources whenever possible to ensure natural color without undisclosed dyes. Look for 82% butterfat or higher, which indicates the manufacturer has voluntarily exceeded the American minimum. Look for USDA organic certification to eliminate recombinant bovine somatotropin and reduce antibiotic and pesticide exposure. Check the wrapper material and prefer brands that have been tested for PFAS or that use parchment paper rather than coated foil. Read the ingredient list carefully. Natural flavor can hide diacetyl or similar compounds that the label is not required to name. Prefer pasture-raised or trusted small producers and prioritize brands that test packaging for PFAS. Let me be direct about what this investigation has revealed. Butter is the only staple food in America legally exempt from declaring its color additives. The dairy industry lobbied for this exemption. Conventional butter is routinely colored with annatto and flavored with diacetyl, both disclosed only as natural flavor or not disclosed at all. American butter requires only 80% butterfat, 2% less than the European standard, meaning more water and less flavor per stick. Recombinant bovine somatotropin remains legal in American dairy production but is banned across the EU, Canada, Japan, and Australia. PFAS forever chemicals were found in butter wrappers at levels up to 122 parts per million. Kerrygold was pulled from shelves in New York and California over PFAS contamination. The FDA did not announce a phase-out of PFAS in food contact packaging until February 2024, after decades of exposure. The dairy industry spent nearly $8 million lobbying in 2025. The Emory study found antibiotic residues in 60% of conventional milk. American milk permits somatic cell counts nearly double the European standard. And the mandatory dairy checkoff extracted over $1 billion from farmers since 2019, funding fast food marketing partnerships rather than quality improvement. The butter label says pasteurized cream and salt. The reality includes undisclosed colorants, undisclosed flavoring compounds, potential PFAS migration from packaging, potential antibiotic residues, potential synthetic hormone exposure, and a butterfat percentage set at the lowest level the industry could achieve while still calling the product butter. Every element that separates the label from the reality exists because the regulatory system permits it. And the regulatory system permits it because the industry that profits from the gap spent enough to ensure the gap would remain. Legal does not mean pure. It means they lobbied for the right to add color without telling you.